So we're here at the Edge AI Foundation Conference with David Cuartielles, co-founder at Arduino. David did a keynote speech yesterday, I believe, which is very interesting. And today we just wanted to talk a bit more about Arduino and involvement with the foundation as well. So David, for the benefit of the audience, could you give maybe a bit more of an introduction, background, and what Arduino is doing specifically in this kind of area?
Yeah, so as you know, at Arduino, we're working with microcontrollers. At this point, we might do differently in the future because we started with very low features microcontrollers, and now we migrate into pretty rich in features microcontrollers. So what happens is that there's of course a whole branch of HAI that's focusing on having low power devices that are going to control very simple features, and that's where Arduino is playing right now. So we're looking at having a machine that's going to be, for example, monitoring the temperature of the machine 100 times per second. And based on that, on the patterns of behavior of the machine, acting one way or the other. As to give you an example, in the workshop we did here yesterday, we were working with an accelerometer, and we fed the data from the accelerometer into a PLC. And this PLC is a dual core, so we could have one of the cores doing an inference, checking on a motor that was also controlled by the PLC. So the PLC was moving this fan, and if there was some kind of anomalies in the behavior, you could detect it very easily with this accelerometer. And the idea of the workshop is to show how you can go from idea to realization very quickly. So that's very much at the core of Arduino, right? So we look at how to make this process as simple as possible, especially on the hardware end, which is our specialty. But also we try to make it directly deployable. Like I think we did yesterday, with a bit more training, you just put it in a machine right away.
Yeah. Great. And I guess as part of that, with the foundation more generally, and obviously Arduino being a member, what is the kind of main impact from Arduino of being involved in this community?
Well, as you might know, Arduino has been part of creating the education materials for the foundation from the beginning, like the first books that are kind of somehow attached to the foundation or working with back in the days TinyML, right, were written with Arduino words in mind, because they have such a large coverage that it's very easy to reach to an audience where people are already having the word in their closet. So we've been working with this, and that's what we'll continue to be doing in the future, I guess.
From a use case perspective, we've seen lots here demonstrated on the vision side, the audio side, and very, I guess, the technical level. But maybe from your side personally, what's the main challenge or use case that you really want to see this kind of edge AI addressing or solving in the future?
Well, personally, I'm very engaged in looking at how to get this technology to reach the countries where you might think will have the less appearance. So, for example, we work with ICTP, this center that collaborates with UNESCO in teaching workshops. We're very focused on making this technology reach out to universities, entrepreneurs in these places, because they can really, really benefit, because they don't have, many times they don't have other infrastructures. Yeah. And so they are very free to start with the latest from the beginning, right? It's like when you introduce mobile telephony in Latin America, they didn't need to install landlines because mobile telephony was already covering much better, and then you have to make a huge investment. In this case, you might not get access to very complex internet infrastructures, but you can have HAI devices that will do these small tasks, from controlling machines at workshops to small industries, manufacturing for a specific region, or even agriculture facilities that need to be sensorized in their fields. So that's where I think HAI can really make a big, big impact. And places that don't have any other technologies already in place are the ones that will benefit the most, because now also the new devices are extremely cheap. So they are much more affordable, and they can reach out to those people that eventually couldn't pay the more expensive systems.
Great. And I guess that leads quite nicely onto the education piece as well. So I know the foundation has a number of initiatives, Career Edge, and working on education certification programs. I guess for someone that's graduating or an early career and wants to really get involved in this industry from a professional capacity, what would be the main piece of advice or tips that you think would really help them to do that?
Well, yeah, I would like to make this comparison. When I was graduating at university 30 years ago, knowing English was like stopping to be an advantage. Like the generation before me, if they learn English, that was a strong advantage. Yeah. When I graduated, knowing English was mandatory. Yeah. So at this point, I think machine learning is becoming mandatory. As a matter of fact, the same workshop we conducted here yesterday at the conference, because I have colleagues at UT, because I was teaching here for 5 months a year ago. So we reached out and repeated the workshop with the undergraduates in computer science and engineering. And we had a great attendance. We had almost more attendance at the conference, because of course the students are learning this in class these days, and they're very eager to see the applications. And so I would say for those that are willing to enter into this field, I think they should really get ready, because everything is going to be about this for quite a while now. It's like it's a new paradigm for programming. It's a new paradigm for getting computers to understand the world. And it's much easier once you know how to do it. It's much easier to solve the problems than it was with traditional coding mechanisms, right? So I think it's going to be a must.
And do you think in the next few years there's going to be a bit of a bottleneck or a skill gap where people who traditionally have focused on embedded system development don't quite have that knowledge yet around machine learning as well?
That's a really good point. Yeah, because I do think that graduates are going to come with the knowledge from school. Especially, there's going to be some schools, as you know, well, Harvard started with like creating the content that everybody are using around, but now we see almost every school I visit, there's a professor or two that are doing tiny ML or machine learning or learning in the edge and so back up for like. I think what's crucial now is to figure out which are going to be the next technologies. Yeah. For example, federation, right? Things that we haven't really implemented in an easy way. So knowing those things are going to be the key differentiator, because even people at companies are going to have an easy time to learn. Here at the conference, well, we have Edge Impulse, for example. It's like super easy. You can do everything command line with like Python, but of course you can just like, program drop the files and get into work. And funny enough, yesterday as I was making this workshop with students, they mentioned two other models or two other methods to do the same operations, right? So it's interesting because as these methods emerge, what we have to start thinking about, and what I think the traditional embedded firms need to start thinking about, is about these models where they can actually have multiple devices, fleets of devices collaborating. And I think that's going to be the key differentiator in the future.
That's all great. And finally, maybe you are not able to pick and choose, but what's the most interesting thing you've seen at the conference this week?
Of course, I'm gonna mention our friends at Symbian, of course. Since we're launching something together, that's I think the way to go. We've been working with launching these libraries for our motherboard that we think is really going to have a big impact. People are researching and deploying things in the home environments where there's other matter devices, from like lighting devices, heating devices, automatic blinds, or electronic door locks. So I think that's very exciting because, believe it or not, the one space where IoT worked was the home. So it's a way we can really make a difference.
Great. Yep. I think that's a good note to end on. Thank you very much for your time. See you soon.